Welcome to the Think Fitness Life podcast, where we bring the mind, body, and gym together so you can improve your health, increase performance, and live your best life. For more information, visit thinkfitnesslife.com. Here are your hosts, Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie.
Here we go again. The Think Fitness Life team, Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie. It is February and we're having a good day over here. I'm in Salt Lake City and Eric's in Boston. And today we want to talk a lot about nutrition. So the first thing we wanted to go over before we dive into this juicy topic is our weekly workout. Eric, you want to deliver it to us?
Yeah, so our weekly workout, very simple. We're going to go a little 5x5, kind of hit a 24, 25 rep range.
Classic.
Throughout this day. So we're going to start first pairing split squats, 5 sets of 5. We're going to pair that with dumbbell bench press, 5 sets of 5. Moving on to our second pairing, dumbbell RDL, 3 sets, 8 reps. We're going to pair that with chin-ups, 3x8, or if you don't have a chin-ups, lat pull-downs, 3x8. Our next series is tricep press downs, 3 sets of 10. Then we're pairing that with lateral raises, 3x12. So that's going to be the lift. So we want to get quality with the weights on the bars, the dumbbells. And then our energy system development is going to be med ball slams, 5 sets of 8 reps. Get explosive, get powerful. That is your day.
What's the recommended rest at the end there after the med ball slams?
For the med ball slams, 40 to 60 seconds in between.
Okay.
Get some recovery in and rip those sets.
Yeah, I think we almost need to have like a whole episode just on like intro to weekly workouts because it should go without saying. We may have to just repeat it every time or every other time or something. But you want to get warmed up, you want to get loose, you want to have good mobility before you start. You want to be sensory aware of your feet, your glutes, your core, your shoulder blades during your warm up, and then when you hit these workouts, you got to think that 5 reps, you're trying to find a challenging weight that you can also control. It's not just 5 reps as fast as you can, otherwise it would have been explained that way. But for the most part, you want to try to do like a 2-second eccentric coming down, lowering down, and then explode with 1 second. And then you're going to rest in between as you superset these because you don't want to just rush through this workout as fast as possible. That's not the goal. The goal isn't to just do it with a record time. The goal is to get something out of it. So those 5 reps, those 12 reps, you want to be under tension. You want to feel your body working, be present in your body. You make the time to show up, making time in your schedule for a workout. So show up, get that bang for your buck. I don't want to go too far into our time for nutrition here today because Eric's got a lot to say. Eric's been a madman writing constantly. For those of you who follow our blogs, he is our lead blog writer, and you love what you do, Eric. It's easy to read it and tell about that you're interested in your topic. And I think the big piece that we like to do is make things digestible for people, pun intended. We really don't try to put blogs out that are longer than like 5-10 minutes of a read. Right. And I love that. I love that you can do that for people. Sometimes your language is a little bit intense, but then I go in there and dumb it down. But yeah. So where do you want to take us on this nutrition path? Where should we start?
I would like to start with just kind of the mindset overall. I don't want this to be, diving in, but from lately, what I've been doing with certain clients is you got to really help them understand obviously the why behind it, but also their choices and knowing what they're doing. Because the most important thing that I think is setting people back is the small decisions they make that they don't think are, detrimental to a program. Like, oh, I just had this one time this week, or I just did this. That they don't realize that is, combining that, and it's kind of spinning their brain to be like, oh, okay, if I do this once, it's kind of an avenue to do it again, or it's just not putting themselves in a position to be successful. And whether their goals are weight loss or gain, that choice is not letting them get there. And I think it comes down to the big thing is emotions. And as of lately, working with people, emotions drive everything. Our brain is driving this system forward. And emotions and feelings in the moment really guide how people react to situations, and especially towards food. I'm sure you've heard it before. I have these comfort foods, right? Everyone has, so-called comfort foods that make them feel good. I wish we could just take that away and like that feel good feeling. Like food should not make you feel good. Food should not be the one thing that drives your dopamine receptors to be like, oh wow, that was a great experience. And I think that's a
Right.
big thing nowadays with the world we live in the food industry, that they're gearing all the food choices towards your emotion. How you feel when you look at that food makes your decision. When innately, we should have a decision. What do we need? What should be important? What nutrients on that plate?
And just to clarify, Menchie's saying, you shouldn't feel good from food, meaning all the time. You shouldn't make it your only goal to only feel good when you're eating, and you shouldn't only eat if you're going to feel good. That's just the monotheological problem that people find themselves falling into with food.
Right.
And I think it's really important to kind of explain it in terms of nutrients and nutrition, and rather than just like a diet. Like, because I think, like you said, like the mindset is just so different. So many people just want you to tell them, what do I eat? Just tell me what to eat. Tell me what to eat. And it doesn't work that way, to just kind of put yourself in a box and just say, this is all I'm going to eat. You have to know kind of why. Your brain and system has to know what you're doing something for. And you have to, really sort of believe in the process and trust in the process and have faith, after you've done your research, to stick to your guns. Because if you are so much of a worry wart about everything and you don't believe everything, then guess what? Like your mind has already dictated that you're not going to get results, because you already don't believe that you are capable or that you're deserving or whatever it may be. I think another piece too is being able to recognize what people are doing. I remember having a few people tell me, "Oh yeah, I have a couple sweets here and there, but it's not that big a deal." And I said, "Okay, like let's dive further into that. Let's keep track. Let's just spend a week and just keep track of every time you think you're just having a little sweet." And they came back to me and they were shocked at how much they were eating garbage, because they weren't truly recognizing it. They were just considering it as like not that big a deal. They didn't have to worry about it. So because of that, their brain wasn't even like keeping track appropriately. It was just this, oh no, like it happens like once versus it happening every meal or every day. So I love how we're starting with the kind of the mindset first. I think that is really important.
And
'Cause like you
especially
said,
where, people don't realize that the brain is built for survival. And we're meant to taste sweet, savory, what do they call it? Umami I think it's Japanese, where it's like that, the fat and
bitter.
protein. No, it's like it's a savory. It's a sensation that they try to make these foods tastier, because if for survival you bit into, let's say, a banana, it was sweet. We knew, okay, this was ready to eat. It was carbohydrate source. It wasn't available all year round. This is something we should probably look for and get for survival, right? Same thing with protein. Like, it's going to drive certain things to go find these certain foods. Well, you take survival out of that, and what do we have? We have a brain that's trying to survive an environment that we've created that doesn't need survival. So what happens is it just becomes this automated thing saying, oh, I like the taste of fat and sugar combined. Well, that means I want more, because your brain is just, one aspect is thinking, okay, this is good feedback, but it's also good. We'll survive on it. I want more. And years ago, that combination never existed. Fat and really sugar doesn't really exist in nature as one. We took cream and sugar, made ice cream. So if you kind of look at those things, they don't, those things really don't exist. I mean, you'll have some crossover. There's some fat in some foods and some carbohydrates, but we're talking carbohydrates from plants, you know.
Yeah.
So kind of where you want to go is getting into like sugar and why
I was just gonna say,
sugar.
back to the evolutionary piece that you said
Yeah.
in the beginning, because we don't know what we're gonna be able to find when we're hunter gatherers, and your brain innately just wants things that are more calorically dense, that require very little effort for you to consume. So something like berries, an apple, banana, fruit in general, all these high sugar dense foods, it's very little energy for you to consume, and it's very little energy for your body to process that into ready to use energy, and it's a lot of energy. Unfortunately, the way it has worked is we've uptaked in our intake, and we've downwardly seen a trend in our energy expenditure. So where we have this caloric surplus, we can look at the trend, even just in America, and see how in just 30 years, obesity has increased by 70%. So it just kind of extrapolated on itself from a little minute detail of letting the brain dictate, okay, survival, I need more calories in than calories out, because it already thinks you're going to probably be used to physical demand already, and it's not getting that physical demand anymore. But the system's already in place of just consume more and be efficient that way, because that's just how we survive. That was the evolutionary trait that's allowed us to be around today, and create so many advances in technology that we're all happy to have. We just have to make up for them. They have these shortcomings that we have to be mindful of and make up for them. So if we notice, okay, the car, internet, working from home, my lack of activity has increased, well, then I can either adjust things on the other side of, well, let me clean up my diet and maybe intake less, but also you probably need to exercise more. I think it's definitely a combination of both, and finding that sweet spot for each person is just a puzzle that each person has to really figure out. And that's what makes our jobs fun, because there's really no two situations that are perfectly identical.
Right. And then especially with sugar. And now in consulting with clients these days, I'm almost finding sugar is in everything. It's a
Yeah.
tactic. It is a weapon that these companies know and they use to put in food that maybe or isn't really that palatable. Like it doesn't taste well. Prime example, I was talking to a client about oatmeal. He was like, "Is oatmeal okay?" I was like, "As long as it's plain, proper way to cook it if you can handle it." And then they sent me packets of Quaker oats or instant oatmeal, and I'm like, no, they sneak sugar in no matter what in these things, and like that is a big problem, and a lot of people don't realize it. They think something is healthy, like sugar, and they sneak it in there, and
Yeah.
people don't really realize that, and I think that's a hard thing to tell people is you're kind of getting misled in the food industry world because they want you to keep buying their products.
Yeah, and that's got to be considered for sure. That they're not necessarily trying to sell you something because it's going to be best for you. They're trying to sell you something that's going to be best for them. You have to be mindful, and you have to make the right choices as a consumer. Can't just think that reading a label, or because it says healthy or it's in the health food aisle, that it's going to be good for your system. Everything has its context. So what might be right for someone else might be totally wrong for you. Just generally speaking, if it's wrapped in plastic and packaged on a shelf, it's probably not going to be the best thing for your internal symbiotic nature of your gut bacteria and your mitochondria and energy partitioning and energy systems and protein synthesis. Think about, you have 37 trillion cells in your body. You're trying to make the best environment for them. So eating things that are most in tune with nature and our evolutionary footprint or fingerprint, so to speak, is going to be what's best for your system. So getting a healthy base of vegetables, having a good amount of protein, having quality fats. These are all things that are innate in our biology, and carbohydrates have a role as well. Typically tend to be more carriers than anything else. But then you take sugar, just raw sugar, and it's just totally different than, say, an apple. If I take a tablespoon of calories in just sugar, like a bag of sugar, or a tablespoon of calories in an apple, there's at least the antioxidants, fibers, different vitamins and minerals in the skin. There's a lot more at play here in that intake than just a tablespoon of raw sugar. So I think that's another key point, because someone can also get into the side of, well, I'm eating fruits and vegetables, so it's fine. And they can even be overdoing it in the sugar in that category as well. So it's just something to be considered, that back to what Menchie said, like, you shouldn't always think that you need to love everything you need to eat. It's the same thing with the gym. You don't need to love every single exercise, but you need to know why you're doing something that you hate, because it's going to be affecting your system in a positive manner. Same thing when you eat. It shouldn't always have to be sweet. You should force yourself to eat things that are bitter. The most times, the more bitter, the more better. That hardness of your senses. And what happens is we flood our senses with sweetness all the time, and we starve our sensitivities. So that all we really truly want and get pleasure out of is sweet. That really firing on of our dopamine system, intense sweetness. And then it actually deadens your sensitivities to the sweetness of, like, a pepper. How many people do you know would say that when they bite into a sweet pepper, they can taste the sweetness? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that was where 100% I would go next. Is we have an interesting relationship with food nowadays. People want to, like you said earlier, they want to enjoy this. I don't know why. Food is fuel for you to get to point A to B and you to accomplish a task.
I think too many people jump to the trophy. They lose the process and jump to the end point, right? Like, think about
that. Yes. Whereas, 100%.
A body in after exercising for so long. So many people just, like, want that body, but they don't want to put the work in for it. They just want to buy the trophy or buy the supplements or buy the steroids that gets them that look without needing to put in any work. And it's the same thing with their diet. You see so many people who enjoy a steak dinner, enjoy a sweet treat, enjoy an extravagant feast, and they just want to jump to that enjoyment. They miss out on the fact that the true enjoyment came out of the fact that you and I or other people have been there, where they have to be really meticulous about prepping for, working on multiple occasions for months. It's more rewarding because you went through the process of the hardships to enjoy it. And I think so many people just jump right to, like, I need to enjoy everything I'm eating all the time.
Yeah, and that's where, thank you for correcting me, that's where I was kind of bringing that, is when they do get a food, and I don't want to say it's not going to taste good. It's not going to taste good to their perception, right? We take that pepper. You bite into an orange pepper. I know what an orange pepper is going to taste like. Some people will bite into that and they'll be like, this is bland. This is because it's not to the stimulus, right? It's not to the stimulus of whatever they've been eating that's maybe more highly fat or more sugar content. So getting people to understand that maybe not all their meals, they're going to sit down and be like, ooh, this is delicious. This is amazing. You still want food to taste good, but you're just going to understand there's some foods, like your vegetables and proteins that are going to just taste the way they are. You can add some flavor to them, but it's not going to be this meal where it's like, ooh, could go die for a meal. And I think people look for that more often. And that's what drives them to these food choices of high in sugar content, higher in fat content. And then we know as they combine together. And then when they get there, I'm working with a client now, is kind of taking stuff away, and they're like, wow, this is miserable. Like, I don't like this. I don't think I can do this. It goes back to them mentally understanding that, you have to kind of remap your brain here and give it a different station to go to, because it can't go to the mac and cheese every single time, because that's not getting you anywhere. And I think that is a big thing holding people back is, and we've built this as a culture of, you should sit down and every meal should be this savory, delicious, like mouth-watering meal, when in shorthand, no, it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
if
You,
people are working on it, practice taking, bland food and not really flavoring, and see where you get with it. I mean, it's not to write home about, but it's just kind of one of those things that it gets done, and your brain kind of learns, and that stimulus comes down.
but another thing that you're talking about that I want to highlight is the instant gratification aspect. Is so many people just want to eat the spinach and notice the change, or eat the spinach and feel the difference. And it doesn't happen like that the same way that sugar can rush your dopamine system or flood your reward system in your brain and have so much dopamine released. You're not going to eat the spinach and expect to have that same reaction. And I think the best success I've had with changing people's nutrition is having them be perceptive to sitting down for like an hour talking about the changes that we're going to implement before we even did any changes, because they saw the bigger picture and they realized, like, yes, this is hard, but it's going to be temporary. It's going to get to a point where you get better at this, where your system does get better at being receptive to you feeling like dog shit after eating bullshit for lunch, or you eating amazing food and then, wow, the rest of the day I felt amazing. And then you look back retroactively and you said, oh yeah, you know what, I stuck to my plan. I stuck to eating for quality, nutritionally dense food for breakfast. I did that for lunch, and wow, I'm not getting foggy today after work. Or wow, like I have so much more clarity in my conversations. Or wow, I'm not getting as irritable. Or wow, I'm not as angry. Oh, I don't have a stomach ache or this neck ache or this lingering knee pain. And I think so many people want that instant gratification, and they've lost sight of the process that needs to take place when you're implementing change. Is a little bit of that consistency factor. And it is true that Mitch is talking about is you have to feel it. You have to feel the difference of your body operating on a more nutritionally dense, holistic based diet, and be more mindful of the times that you do eat garbage, because you will start to gain a sort of that intrinsic negative feedback of like, oh man, I ate a whole pack of Oreos, that's why I have a stomach ache now, versus like some people coming in and being like, oh, I don't know why, I just feel like shit this morning. And I'm like, okay, well, what'd you eat last night? And they're like, oh, I don't think it was that, but I had like, a couple beers and some pizza at a friend's house. I think they ordered Pizza Hut or something. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's probably why you feel like shit. And it's
Yeah.
like some people can't even make that connection themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to feel it to heal it.
Because a
Whether
lot of
it's
people don't, maybe have never really felt the opposite, and then they're constantly kind of in this, let's say, middle state of this kind of mental fog, brain fog, because their diet's not optimal. And then like to take a scenario, once you kind of go overload it with something like beer and pizza, yeah, of course you're not going to feel good the next day. But people just think that's just kind of like a normal, like, oh, I just had that, it shouldn't affect you. Well, foods like that 100% will affect you. And then once you come
well,
off that and you feel what it doesn't feel like to be like that, it's a very powerful change for people. And they're like, wow, I just never want to feel like that again.
and that point right there is the source of why trainers get angry at the food industry. The general trend is that the public is misinformed and misguided on
Yes.
purpose in order
Mm-hmm.
to drive profits for an individual company.
Yep.
Don't always believe everything you crave. Don't always believe everything you think. Just try to ask yourself a question of, am I really hungry right now? Is this really going to be the best choice for me right now? Is this really going to let me perform my best net right now? Because it's going to be that emotional drive. You're going to say, but I really want this right now. You're like, everything in my day has gone so bad, but I really want this sugary treat right now because this is going to make my day. If
Mm-hmm.
that's how you're living life, you're doing something wrong. And there's definitely ways to resolve this issue. We've seen a lot of great success with our clients overcoming some of these bad behaviors.
Agreed. Yeah. That kind of piggybacking off that, it's just changing your emotions. Controlling what is in between our two ears, and not having it be, as you've said, try not to let it be instant. Try to make your emotion towards something that is in the foreseeable future, but something that you're working towards. no matter what it is, that's it. Because if you can kind of put like an almost slightly pause button and say, okay, is this going to put me on the path to where I want to be next week? If the answer is no, then your choice is no. And that's kind of how I've always approached things, and especially with clients, is you got to make their want or their need emotionally bigger than the chicken fingers and fries in front of them right there. Like that's the battle we're at. You and I both know as trainers, like we're battling that each and every day. If you can get people to realize their emotions towards future things, what they want, it's a big win for us.
Start with figuring out what is going to be the best nutrition that your body and your system needs for your activity levels. And people are at all different stages. Figure out what your approach is, and you know what is nutritionally dense, and you know what foods are going to be best for eating. Try it. And here's the thing. The big piece is you're not going to want to eat it. You're not going to prefer it. Are you really hungry? Are you just still having a sugar craving? Because you are sitting there with a well-balanced, nutritionally dense meal. And if you're sitting there and you can't eat it, well, then don't you think your system is a little spoiled? And my one quote that I'm going to say for today's podcast will be, when the preferable is not available, the available becomes preferable.
If you're ready to make steps towards improving your health or increasing your performance, book a free 30-minute call today by visiting thinkfitnesslife.com.